Thursday, August 22nd, 2024. And this is All the Leads Mastermind podcast number 493. We've got some big things cooking for our 500th podcast, but I won't spoil the surprise now, but we're working on some stuff. Tim, what do you have for us this week?
I'm just I'm running a pool to see how long you're going to wait to spoil the surprise. I mean, it's 7 weeks away, so I figure you might make it three. Just a
Well,
guess.
as soon as we come up with one, then I'll be able to spoil it.
That's why we're not going to tell you about it.
Okay, seems fair.
uh, so welcome everybody. Um, it's an interesting week in the aftermath of the change with NAR, and I don't know about you, but we haven't seen a lot of wailing, moaning, and gnashing of teeth or any of the stuff going on. I think people were reasonably well prepared for it and have made some adjustments in their lives. And I think some people are not in our business that were 2 months ago. And some of you have seen this for what it was, which was an opportunity to grow and make some changes. And I think those are interesting things to think about. We want to take our time today and spend some more time focused on our core business and basically talk a good bit about probate and divorce today and kind of get some things moving there. And I see Steve has joined us, so that's good. Steve, I don't know, are you still driving? I think you are. Yep. Okay. Well, drive carefully. We'll wait on you to get here. So we appreciate y'all being here. I think the most important issue that I kind of want to talk about today is a little bit about looking at the pillar side of probate as part of your business rather than on a one-on-one basis. What are you doing to build it as a focus part of your business rather than just how do I deal with the leads when I get them? How do I do, this situation, this person, this thing? Looking at it more to the idea of what am I doing in terms of building this as a key leg of my business. We call them, in our side of the business, we call them a pillar. And it's a pillar of your business. And are you structuring that part of your business in a way that it becomes something that's a reliable and replicatable part of your business? So that's kind of, I think, the jumping off point I would like to kind of deal with today is to have you kind of, and we'll talk a good bit about that today in terms of that's kind of where we're going to take the direction. We certainly are happy to take your questions and delighted to do that. We want to hear anything that you have in regard to questions about probate or divorce or any other aspect of what's going on. This call is for you, not for us. But we always try to embark on a topic maybe in the beginning, and then usually by a quarter of the way into it, you guys take control and it goes somewhere else. But that's kind of where I was going to start today. But look at the bottom of your screen if you're online with us direct in Zoom, and raise your hand if you have a question. If you want to chat it in via the live stream, you can certainly do that as well, and we're monitoring that. So we'll be happy to hear from you. Having set the table a little bit with that, I'm going to kind of just talk with Bruce a little bit about this and ask Bruce a little bit of a question about the overall side of it, structuring it in terms of building a group, building the side of your business to make these things work, all those kinds of things going forward. Any big picture kind of recommendations that you'd make about that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we need to look at is we need a really good game plan. The first thing before rushing out and saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna build my group. I'm gonna hire team members. I'm gonna partner with vendors. I'm gonna put all these things into place." It can get a little bit overwhelming. So the first thing that I'm gonna suggest that anyone do that's starting this from scratch, and if you're not starting from scratch, this this process still works for you. I'm going to recommend that you sit down and say, hey, start to finish, let me list off everything that in a perfect world, how my team would look, how many transactions I'm doing, what my marketing looks like, everything that I could possibly do for my real estate business or niche based business. So it could be good for probate, it could be good for divorce, it could be good for foreclosures, expireds, it could be good for your whole business. But list off everything start to finish that you would like to have accomplished over a certain amount of time, and then chunk it all down into baby steps. That's going to be the most important thing for you guys, is to knock it all down into baby steps. Because when you look at this huge list, I've been guilty as a coach and a trainer of giving you guys a huge list of things that you can go out and do, and they're all really important. But rather than overwhelm yourself, say, hey, you know what? This month, I'm going to focus exclusively on being better on the phone. The next month, I'm going to focus exclusively on working on my digital presence, websites, videos, things like that. The next month, I'm going to focus on my cold marketing, mail, brochures, things like that, things along this line. And then maybe the next month, I'm going to focus on my warm marketing. And the idea here is you're going to chop your business down into these month by month tiny steps that you're going to focus on. Start with the things that are most likely to generate deals and income for you early. And then as you go along and you build systems around those things, move to another category and then another category and then another category. But you've got to start with the big picture, knowing start to finish, hey, I'd like to cover all these things. And now, how can I break them down into month by month or week by week bites that I can actually handle, that are actually going to produce me revenue, even if I still have 99% of the journey to go. 1% of the journey can produce you revenue. You just need to know what that 1% of the journey is that you're going to focus on right now, and then have an idea of how you're going to handle the rest of the 99%. So don't allow yourself to get overwhelmed. That's the biggest failure that I see with people that are in the real estate business or the probate niche or the divorce niche, is they look at all these things and they just get paralyzed. So please don't get paralyzed, but do have an understanding of everything that you can do. Just put it in its appropriate place.
When you mean paralyzed, you mean analysis paralysis or
Yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
oh let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's one of the things that we often see when, because we hate to, for selfish reasons, we hate it when people don't stick around and don't continue to subscribe and do that. But also, more importantly, and quite truthfully, more importantly, we're heavy into want to make sure you're successful. And when you aren't, and you demonstrate that by not continuing to subscribe to your leads and going forward, we want to know why. So we ask, and 99.9% of the time, it's the same story. It may have a different wording in terms of what's been done, but it's more, well, I didn't do everything that I knew I should, and I'm not being successful. I'm overwhelmed. I'm whatever. And it's almost always the same thing. It's like, well, I know there's so many things I ought to be doing, and I'm not doing them, and my leads are just coming in and they're piling up, and I haven't gotten to half of them, and yada yada yada. It's just, I get it, I understand. And the same thing that you just said, Bruce, I think the counsel side of that is, well, what are you doing? What pieces of what's going on can happen to make things happen for you sooner. And I think that's great advice in terms of talking about what can you do now rather than wait. You don't have to have a huge team. You don't have to have a relationship with an attorney. You don't have to have any of those things to start working your leads and to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, all too often people get stuck into well, tomorrow I'm going to go do this. And the main thing that you got to take away from this is immediate direct action. What are you going to do this afternoon when this call is over that you weren't doing before the call started? What are you doing to make some stuff happen? And I think that's a key part of this. Aline, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I did jump in a little bit late, but I believe I got the essence of what we're discussing. And what I want to add to that is that It's essentially what we're helping the personal representative or our clients with, right? We're helping moving them along the process when they're inundated in a daunting position and feel overwhelmed. We're coming in and moving them along. So we have to be really efficient and good at doing that for ourselves so that we can then in turn be helping our clients and the families that we support.
Absolutely. Yeah, they get overwhelmed just the same way we are. And
Absolutely.
what are you going to tell them when they have 40,000 different things that they need to tackle in probate? What coaching are you going to give them? And it's going to be, let's take it a step at a time. Okay. Coach yourself. A lot of us have an easy time advising and coaching someone else and a terrible time advising and coaching ourselves. Chunk it down, take care of one thing at a time. Make sure that that one thing at a time is something that can produce money. Okay, if you're especially unless you're just sitting on a pile of cash in the bank, you need to make sure that that one thing can produce a return. But if it, but focus on that and kind of ignore the other things until their appropriate time.
So let's just take this from the standpoint of I'm a brand new subscriber and I subscribe today. And I know that on next Tuesday, according to what I was told when I signed up, surprise, surprise, leads are available. What do I need to do in the next 72 hours to be ready to rock and roll and take advantage of that and start enjoying the fruits of my investment? What's the first best thing that somebody needs to do to start that process?
Okay. So first thing is I want you to recognize that even some of your individual steps can also be broken down into baby steps. So mail is one of your steps for having a successful probate business, mailing. I like to do 6 to 7+ months of mailing. That's a whole lot to get started with. So I might start with 1 or 2 letters to warm up a call. So those would probably be the first 2 things that I do. I'm going to put a mailer out the door, and I'm going to follow it with a phone call. So
Hey,
your letters in.
Yeah, so let me stop you there and let's just talk about the straight up logistics of how that gets done. Obviously, we have a team of people ready to do that with you and can help you get started with that program. So obviously, we have marketing implementation specialists who are sitting here waiting and they reach out to you. They are certainly attempting to contact you as soon as you get started so that we can help you do exactly that. We can help you get your letters out the door, ready to go, so that when your leads come, they're ready to, they're ready to, the mail should go out immediately, get started with that so that if your leads are coming out on Tuesday, by Thursday or Friday, they ought to start hitting mailboxes in your local marketplace. So it's not like you've got to figure out how to go do it. You just have to be willing to take 15 and 20 minutes of a phone call, make sure that it's there, it's ready, it says what you want to say, and go forward. You don't have to be a writer. You don't have to create your content. We've done all that for you. It's all ready, and we've got people ready to go get it started for you. So what Bruce said, that's a really easy one to implement. It's a quick step, and we can do that with you, for you, and by you when you get going here. So all you got to do is make sure that you're available to talk to us when you get squared away and started.
Yep.
Go ahead from there, Bruce.
Okay. So get something out the door in their hands that you're going to follow up on. Now, my preference when I do mail is to mail a nice, warm, I'll help you with the entire probate process. It's warm. It feels better to them. I'm going to tell you guys, most of the time they don't know that they need the help that you're offering, and so they don't rush to the phone. I want you guys to understand sometimes some markets and some people rush to the phone, others don't. But think of it like a nice introductory, warm opening. Now, if you don't know how to put that message together, put something together that's much simpler and easier. You might put a message together in the mailbox that says, Hey, I'm writing about 123 Main Street. I can't tell exactly what's happening. It might be part of an estate. If the family's thought about selling, call me at this number. Now, I want you guys to understand that that generates a lot more calls than the nice, warm, I help you with the probate process letter. Some of those calls might not be super friendly. Okay. When you open up with a concierge, I help you with this entire process standpoint, the number of calls go down, but people feel really good about you. When you go, hey, I see somebody just died. This is part of an estate. Do you want to sell the house? Your calls go up. So do the ratio of calls that might be, hey, how dare you chase me like this? This just happened. But I want you guys to realize that there's two different kinds of message. You can be really direct or you can be really soft. If you're going to be really soft, it's even more imperative that you have to make a call after. You've got to get voice to voice or even face to face with them. Go to the house if you don't want to make a call. You've got to speak with them. Okay. Now, once you're on the phone, I want you guys to recognize, I got to turn my background off so you can see. Once you're on the phone, I want you to recognize that you've got a good outcome and a bad outcome that can happen on that call. So what's a good outcome? Tim, what's the best thing that someone could say?
Sure. Why don't you come by and list my house this afternoon?
Yeah. Eileen, what's the worst thing they could say? Okay. Good.
Eileen, you got muted again. You leave it unmuted.
Jim, what's the worst thing they could say?
Aileen was
Oh,
saying,
so sorry. I was, I
How
didn't
dare
realize
you call
you-
me?
Yeah, how dare you call me? I don't know if hopefully my camera's not mirrored when I hold it up to the camera. I can't tell. How dare you call me? Or we got it handled. Our attorney's doing it. Those are those in a lot of cases for a lot of you guys that are doing this new, that's kind of the worst thing that someone could say. How dare you call me? Yeah, that's the worst thing that someone could say. That's very rare. Very rare. Normally, the worst thing that someone's going to say is, my attorney's handling it, or I don't need help, or it's all covered. Okay. That's generally the worst thing. So when you make a phone call, I want you guys to, after your opening, I want you all to give them two options, a question with two different options. And the options are not going to be, yes, we're going to sell and we don't need help. Those are not going to be the options. You're going to actually turn their negative into something a little bit less negative. And the way that you're going to do that is you're just not going to give them the opportunity to say, I don't need you. You might give them a question like this. Hey, do you have everything handled for today? Or is there anything I could take off your plate? And suddenly now they're choosing a negative that you can work with. That negative, I don't need anything for today, is way better than I'm never going to need anything. Maybe you ask about the house. Maybe you say, is the family thinking about selling? Or are you going to keep the house forever? That's not what you say. You don't give them the polar extremes. You give them a, have you all thought about selling? Or have you not had that discussion yet? So you give them an option that if they take the negative, it's not so bad for you. That's the ultimate thing that you want. You want them, if they're going to choose to hold you off and resist you a little bit, you want them to choose something that you can work with that's a little bit more pliable. One of the things I like to do is say, is it a little bit too early to have decided on the house? Yeah, it's too early to have decided. Why do I love that answer? Those of you that have been around me for a while, why do I like when they say it's too early to have decided? Does anyone know? Anyone know? I actually really like that answer. I'd rather them say they're going to sell, but it's too early. What's that tell me?
That means it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. There's a house. Maybe they just haven't talked to the family about it yet, but it's gonna happen. So I kind of take away the extreme negative and give them a really good opportunity to take a negative where they feel like they're in control. They feel like they can hold me off a little bit, but it still gives me a lot of information. Okay. On the opposite side of the business, this isn't about probate. I know I have some agents on here. Any agents that are doing open houses, you guys can use this. I'm just going to give you an example and kind of give you this other scenario so that you know what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get people to give me answers without giving me an answer. That's what I'm really trying to do. So agents are all the time bringing buyers through open houses, and what's one of the first things that an agent says? Do you have a realtor? And what's one of the first thing that 99% of the buyers that walk into your open house are going to say? Yes, I have a realtor. Why are they going to say that? Maybe it's because they do. It's probably because they know that it's going to shut you down. Okay, so rather than ask, do you have a realtor? What I used to do is I'd let them walk through the house for a few minutes and then I'd go, hey, how does this house compare to the others you've been out looking at? And most of the time, all those people that would have said, yes, I have a realtor, they would say, no, I haven't been looking at anything. This is the first house I've been in. And now I know the answer of do you have a realtor without needing to ask, do you have a realtor? Okay. I basically know that if it's the first house they've looked at, they probably don't have a relationship with an agent yet. So suddenly I can start to work on that relationship. So we're going to do the same thing on probate. We're going to ask questions that give us an answer without having to ask the question directly. So you probably don't know what you're going to do with the house yet, right? No, we don't know what we're going to do with it yet. Now I know they're going to sell. Okay. Because most of the time, if they haven't decided, if it's too early, if they don't know, it means they're going to sell. It just means that they haven't gotten to that stage of the conversation. Right. Hopefully this is kind of making sense to you guys and making it a little bit more simple. You take away the option in your conversation that you definitely don't want them to take. You remove it from the conversation. Okay.
So let me ask you, I know that if I were sitting here and listening to you say this, I'm like, man, that Bruce, he always knows what to say. He must just be the most brilliant person ever to talk on the telephone and all that. And, I've known you a long time, and, when I met you, you could barely speak. You didn't know much English, and no, but the reality is that, it's intimidating sometimes to think, well, how long is it going to take me to get to the point of being able to do that? And I think the reality of this is that, one of the good things about working with us and being part of the community that we're in is that you're going to continue to hear these things. You're going to continue to listen to Bruce and to Jim and to our coaches and all of us who talk with you about things you can do, alternatives and all of that. And the thing that you need to take away from this is, we're not expecting you to assimilate all this immediately and, you're instantly going to be as good at doing this as Bruce is. Bruce is, years and years of experience in doing it, and he knows what works well for him and what hasn't worked well. And the way that he's learned that is by breaking a lot of eggs. And I think that's the important thing that I would ask, Bruce, you can validate this as well, is that, you learned how to do this, not because, you learned it in some sort of a classroom environment or some other place. You learned it by doing it. You talked to people, you asked questions, you figured out what worked by asking a whole bunch of the wrong ones along the way. Is that a fair way to say that?
You have to fail.
Exactly.
You have to fail. And I can look at this room and I promise you that there's not a single person on this call that likes failure. I don't like it. I don't like it more than you do. Okay. I don't hate it more than you do. I hate it. I hate failure the same way that anybody else here does. But I do recognize, and those that are successful recognize, that there is no path to being successful at something without some failure along the way. And if you're stuck not doing anything because what if I say it wrong? I have to learn how to say it the right way. I have to learn the perfect letter to send out. I have to have the perfect website. What if my checklist is wrong? What if I say the wrong thing or ask the wrong question? You will not, and cannot consistently get into success
Well, you're
unless
ensuring
you do
from failure
things.
by doing that. I mean,
What?
that's the reality, is that if you do that, you are ensuring your failure.
Yeah.
By not being willing to fail, you're going to make certain that you do.
Yeah.
And that's something I learned a long time ago. And every training program I ever got involved in as a young person trying to learn how to sell stuff, I'll just give you a little bit of background from my standpoint. First sales thing I ever did, I got hired as a sales training specialist for Nissan Motor Corporation as after college, and I'd never sold a car. And I was out there having to train people in selling automobiles. And these are people that, make their living and feed their families selling cars. And here comes Joe College in trying to teach them how to sell cars. Well, I saw the other sales trainers and all of them had automotive backgrounds, and I thought they were, they had their act together and knew how to do all this. And I was in the same circumstance. I didn't know how to do it, and I was in the same deal. I was like, I was going to fail for sure being a sales trainer, until I realized that all you had to do was try. And as I started doing this and listened to what responses came back from the people I was talking to, I learned what worked and what didn't work. And I've applied that to everything I've ever done since then. But I didn't give myself permission to fail. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice other than to go pitch this program and learn how to go do it. And man, did I learn how to fail. But it didn't fail for a long time. I didn't fail, for weeks and weeks and weeks. I failed a few times spectacularly in front of people and got called out. It's like, well, why would you say that? You've never sold a car. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I really never did that. And it's that we call it imposter syndrome. It's like, I really shouldn't be doing this because I really don't have my act together and I don't know everything and all that. Here's the reality. You're just a person. They're just a person. Don't put yourself in a position where you think you've got to know everything. Be willing to say, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but I'll find out and I'll get back to you. Can I call you tomorrow at 2 after I've got that information? Anything that continues the conversation. But everybody who works with us in a selling capacity or talking to a customer, they all have permission. What we call is they have permission to make an omelet, break your eggs. You're not going to screw this up. You paid to get your leads. You've paid with your time. You've paid for money. You've spent time. You've invested in doing this. You can't let them sit there. You've got to go break some eggs. And you'll learn very quickly what works and doesn't work. And what Bruce says may work for Bruce. It may not work for you. Bruce may put something in a way that is so unnatural for you to do it. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel good. You got to find out what works well for you. But the only way you're going to do that is by trying. Pick up the phone, make a phone call, send a letter out and follow it up with a phone call, and make 10 phone calls. And I guarantee you, if you make 10 phone calls and you have 10 conversations, you're going to find a couple of channels of conversation that work well for you. That's just how it works. That's just how it works. And don't sit there and delay and delay and delay and put it off and like, oh, I know I need to make those phone calls. Oh, I need to do these things. Yeah, you do need to do it. Now's a good time. Don't wait. And I just want to encourage you to move forward to get that done. Jim, I know you had your hand in the air and we didn't get to you. What were you going to say, buddy?
Along the lines of what you both said, I've shared with you many times the 500 or so people that I coached over the years. The single biggest mistake they made was wanting to know everything before they did anything. And when I was hearing Bruce talk about a lot of different things that could be done, and Bruce always says different things are going to work for different people. I went all the way back to the 40, 50 years ago, the beginning of my career. The way we got business was volunteer for floor time and sit on open houses, wait for something to happen. And then when I got into coaching like 8 years later, it was kind of revolutionary to treat real estate like a business, actually have a plan and actually keep track of your results. And I would say fast forward many years later, you guys have so many more different marketing online, so many more different marketing opportunities that you are proficient at. But one thing I do notice with our subscribers, especially those that cancel, they try a lot of things, but they don't ever really sit down and make a plan. And then they don't really keep track of their results. I mean, they know, well, I did one deal, but they don't know where the deal came from. They don't know when they're making their calls, when the best time to call is. It always amazes me. It's not uncommon. I'll talk to someone who canceled, and we'll sit down, and they canceled because they'd only done 3 deals in 6 months. And we'll sit down and figure out their ROI was 300%. They never realized that. They just knew that, well, it's only 3 deals. I was expecting 20. So the old axiom, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I still highly recommend do everything Bruce said, try it one at a time, but have a plan. I'm going to do this first, second, third, and then be anal when you first get started at keeping track of your results. I mean, keep track of when you get the most pickups. Keep track of the conversations that result in appointments, the approach you took. Keep track of which letters work best for you. And that's just something that I still notice that very few agents do. Not only have a plan, but really, really be anal about keeping track of your results and make adjustments. Don't just keep doing the same thing and, expecting that it's, going to eventually work a lot better.
Well, and to the point you're making is that if you want to get better at this, you got to have some stats to track. So you got to have some actions that you're tracking. If you're not doing anything, you're not going to have anything to track, and you're just back at the starting gate, and you haven't accomplished anything, and you're just wasting your money. And we don't want you to do that. We want every dime that we can earn from you, but we want to help you be successful to do that. And the only way to do that is for you to take action and get that done. Corey, I know you have your hand in the air. I want to hear what Steve had to say. Steve, go ahead.
Thanks, Jim. I will defer to Coley right now, and I can go after him.
Okay. Coley, what's up, bud?
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good.
So I have a general question, and it's about the pre-probate leads versus the probate leads, as far as what are the advantages and the disadvantages of pursuing both. And my second question is, when is no really no? So I did 2 mailings to this one lady, and she sent me back my letters shredded. So I'm thinking about sending her a fruit basket to see if she gets creative this time. So I'm just curious when you guys think no is really no.
I think that's a great answer. That would certainly be, she certainly tried to give you a pretty strong no. And I think it'd be awesome if you could convert that by, that's back to breaking an egg. That's a pretty good egg there, buddy. I love that idea.
A fruit basket. I would say that's a no. I think you got to know. Thank you. Yeah. If you want to do a fruit basket, go for it. I think you got to know.
Yeah. That's something who's angry.
That's pretty strong no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your question that you're talking about pre-probate versus probate. So here's the differences. The data in some cases, ultimately, the stuff that's in pre-probate, if it goes to probate, it'll show up and it'll become a probate lead at some point. If it actually goes through the courts and gets that done. The difference is obviously what we're starting with pre-probate, we begin with the notice of death, whether it's an obit, whether it's something that's coming out of the aggregators, published in a newspaper, whatever. We gather all that data that we can get our hands around to do that, and then we start skip tracing. We try to find the errors based on the information that we got. We pull contact information from them. We then go and try and determine if the person who passed away owns property. An important piece of data there is that in the pre-probate world, we give that data to in regard to the county, to the place where the property is. In other words, if the person passed away in Boise, Idaho, but the property that they owned was in Phoenix, Arizona, that becomes a Maricopa County lead. It's not a Boise, Idaho lead. So they're very topical. It's to the agent or investor in the market where the leads came from. So that's an important consideration. Probate is different because probate, we make the point of contact and the focus be the personal representative. Obviously, if the decedent passed away in Boise, Idaho, then it's a Boise, Idaho lead, regardless of where the personal representative was. The tendency is almost always that the personal representative is somewhat local to the person that passed away. So one case, you may have a referral to an outside county in a probate lead, and in the pre-probate leads, if you got the lead, it's in your county, it's in your backyard. So that's one part of it. The other side of it is that in pre-probate, it is less defined because you don't know who in the group of people that we give you, number one, if any of them are going to be the executor or executrix or personal representative for the estate. They may or may not be. Depends on what goes on. You don't know if there's a will. You don't know any part of it. You don't know anything about it. So you've got to do a bit more work to get that done. The other advantage of the pre-probate side versus probate is you're getting into the game earlier. So if you're an investor and the person who passed away's death causes an immediate financial burden on the family, that person was the breadwinner or the caregiver, and at that point, if they're no longer in that role in the family, a major upheaval has happened to that family, and they need a quick influx of cash. They're in a situation where a cash offer to buy a property could happen, and that would quickly move things forward for them. There are a lot of other opportunities, but those are the significant differences in the two. One of them is you get in earlier, but you're less assured that you're going to find anybody to talk to who can particularly do anything for you in regard to getting it done. The other side of that is you also have the opportunity to talk to more people because we give you more people. On the probate side, it's more defined. You know that the personal representative is the person that you can do business with. And so, there are differences in the products, and we have people who get both of them and, work both sides of that equation. If you're both an investor and a realtor, having both of them is a good thing to go do. I don't know if that answered all your questions, but that's a reasonable summary of kind of the differences.
Yeah, that definitely clarifies it. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. That's good. Jim, were you finished with what you were saying there, bud?
Yeah, I'm good. I think Steve had something. We were on Steve.
Steve, go ahead, buddy.
So thanks, Tim. I really appreciate what Bruce said in terms of, when you start, because it can be overwhelming. And it really, it's progress. That's what you're looking for, not perfection. If you're aiming for perfection, you're just never going to be there. And I know there's a lot of us, we have personality traits where that's where we think we need to be. But am I progressing? Am I focusing on one thing where I can show some momentum? In fact, I was online yesterday looking for, even within the community, for role play groups. Because even as a coach, I've gotten pretty good from doing the reps on the phone. But I want to get better. How can I better serve the community in order to do that? And I think that's going to be continual, no matter what. Bruce gave a couple of nuggets today as a master trainer that I'm like, yeah, hey, that's something I don't have in my quiver, but I can definitely use it. And I know both you guys said, hey, when Bruce came into this, new to the niche, he refined it and honed it and has done extremely well. Even Chad before him would say when he get on the phone the first couple of times, you get tongue-tied. In the Army, we used to say, hey, when you're learning something new, it's okay. You're going to suck, but it's good to suck at something new because eventually you're not going to anymore. You're going to get better and get refined. So, for the new subscribers, the ones that I've been talking to on these coaching calls, so look, the very first thing you can do is pick the phone. It's not a cactus. Just start talking to people, have a conversation with them, try to elicit, ask questions that allow them to talk so that you can establish trust and rapport. And that's probably the best thing you can do right off from the start, particularly if people don't have a whole lot of money. I talk to a lot of subscribers don't even have mailings. I suggest, look, that's a warm call versus a cold call. But some have got some pretty extensive real estate experience. That's what I'm finding. Far more experience than I have, and sold far more homes. So, it's always a great exchange of ideas. So when people come to this, just understand this niche, okay, it's new, but in a short period of time, if you plug away at it and, like you said, measure it. Measuring means this is the time on my calendar where I'm picking up the phone and I'm making these many phone calls, and you focus on that. Continue to do it. And eventually you're going to get more people to pick up the phone, or you're going to leave messages and you start having conversations with people to find out where they are so you can solve their problems. More than anything else, you're the guide. You want to make them the hero, right? Because they typically have family members looking at them. Heirs usually have siblings. Hey, where are we with this process? And you're trying to set them up for success. And in
Hey, Steve, one thing you said, go ahead, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
go ahead,
finish.
Jim.
No, one thing I was going to add to what you said, when in our coaching, we used to tell people, one of the common excuses was, well, I didn't have time to prospect, I had an appointment. We used to say your appointment to prospect is more important than the appointment you might be going on. Your appointment to prospect is going to get you 5 deals. Reschedule your appointment if you have to, but make that appointment to prospect firm. Don't make it tentative if you have nothing else to do.
Sure, or even treat it like a doctor's appointment. Are you going to miss
Right.
that? I mean, going to the doctor is no fun, but when you have them, sometimes it takes a while to get them. You go. Okay, so that's the way you look at it. This is what I'm doing at this time. And then
Right.
I can look back at the end of the week and see that, okay, I made this many calls, this many people I spoke to. All of a sudden you start seeing a pattern. Maybe you realize, hey, I got to increase calls or whatever. But you got to do something like Bruce said, put money in the till. And phone and the mailings are the best way to do it.
Cool deal. Hey, Dwight, I
Hey there.
appreciate you being on here, and I'm going to ask you if you would to just restate what you put in the chat, and let's take your question on.
Okay. Well, I'm a new member, as I said in the chat. I started probably 2 weeks ago. Got the first drop of probate leads. I'm also going to be working divorce leads. Letter has gone out on both, but only recently on the divorce leads. So we've started calling, and when I say we, it's the grand we. I'm having appointments today. Make the first call for me, and to contact as many people as they can, and let me know who they contact and what they said. Step 2, I have 3 so far. No appointments, but 3 so far that have said that they would like to continue the discussion in a couple of weeks. I sense from listening to the calls that the appointment folks aren't really laying out the full menu of things that first letter offers. They're pushing, I think, too much to get an appointment to sell the house instead of pushing to help. But they've gotten these 3 people who want to continue the conversation. And so I'm going to call each of them back in that 2-week period. I've got it in my calendar. My question is, should I follow up that initial call that's been made and the kind of appointment, loose appointment, with a postcard that said, you spoke with one of my colleagues. I want to introduce myself. I'm Dwight Morris, and just give them a brief, I'm looking forward to speaking with you in 2 weeks kind of message? Or should I just let them sit and wait for that 2 weeks? I feel nervous about that. But I also don't want to put on too much pressure. So what's your thought?
Let me just say, before we get the answer to your direct question, I also want to tell you this. One of the things that you need to do with your folks at appointments today is, if you feel that you want them to custom tailor what they're saying to talk more about your, we'll just call it your wheel of probate, the services that you offer, they'll make that change if that's what you want them to do.
Okay.
The only thing I would tell you is this: you've gotten if they're just starting for you and you've only kind of been at this a couple of weeks and they've already got 3 people in what we call nurture mode, you're
Right.
doing really well at this point. That's a very good ratio. And I looked at your number of leads and all that, and I dug into your account a little bit before I called on you, and they're doing a pretty good job for you. So I would call it a tweak rather than a big change, but definitely let them know that, because that sets the stage a bit better for you to go do that. I think that's important. The only other thing I would say, and then I'm going to ask that the other folks on here raise their hands and are going to comment. I would say this: if you got a nurture going, it's never going to hurt for you to let them know that you're personally interested in it, and you're the person that's going to be calling them back. If you choose to do that with a letter, I think that's a great way to do it. I would do it with a letter rather than a postcard.
Okay.
Postcards sometimes get ignored, where a letter is going to get opened, and I'd make it a straight up letter, not a rah-rah letter that,
Oh,
is a
yeah.
solicitation letter. But I see both Steve and Aline have their hands up. Steve, you're muted again. I'm going to unmute you. Just leave yourself unmuted. Go ahead,
Defer
bud.
to the lady. I'll defer to the lady, and then I'll ask.
Oh, you go first this time. You always defer. I want to hear what you have
Yeah.
to say.
Oh, come on now. Now I feel bad.
It's
right.
okay. Go ahead, please, Steve.
So,
No, you first. No, you first.
Oh, God.
so I submit that I don't think you're going to over ask the question. I think that sometimes people don't ask enough. They're not direct. And there's other ways, kind of like you said, mailing, could be calling, get their social capital, which is the email. And even if you send them an email, you put them on an email drip on a campaign, they may or may not open that email up, but they're seeing your name, they're seeing your company. They know you're out there. You're still interested. You're trying to solve their problem. So I would offer that for you for consideration.
Good.
All right.
Okay,
Aline.
Aline, then me.
Okay. All right. So I think it's great because you're getting a lot of different perspectives on this. And I'm in full agreement that with appointments today, if you've got 3 people that are willing to talk to you in 2 weeks' time, however it got there, it's really great results. And similar to when people say, I'm not going to sell my house in 6 months, they really mean like half the time.
Right.
So there's, again, no harm in waiting. And in my personal opinion, I think a phone call would be great. And I would even call right away and say hi and introduce myself. Hi, it's Dwight, and I'm looking forward to our phone conversation, or a text. I'm looking forward to our phone conversations in 2 weeks' time. And by the way, if you should need something before that, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'll be reaching out to you at such and such number in 2 weeks. Does that still work well for you?
I like that approach.
Dwight,
Right.
let me just.
And you're
let me just-
connecting, and it's one-on-one. It's your voice now.
Yes.
For sure. And what do you know already about these 3 people that you didn't know before they made those phone calls? What do you know about them?
Well, I know that one of them, the person that's going to be handling the estate, is in Atlanta, Georgia. And I believe that is
Well, there's
going to
one
be
thing
a
you know
good thing.
about all 3 of them. There's one thing that you know about all 3 of them. Do you know what that is?
Well, that they're interested in talking to me about services. They're open to, they all have property, and I'm guessing, are all going to sell.
Well, that's the point. They all have property, and there's something going to happen with that property. Otherwise, the answer would have been, no, I don't need to talk to anybody. I've got it. Back
Correct.
to what I said earlier. So the reality is that you could also, to camping on what Aline said, you've got the ability to call them back and say, I know we're scheduled to talk in a couple of weeks, but hey, prior to that, I got a couple of quick questions I'll ask so that I'm better prepared to talk with you in a couple of weeks. Let's do that. And let's pick a time now to make that happen. In other words, when's a great time 2 weeks from now, which happens to be, next Thursday. Are you going to be available at 2 o'clock? So you can book the time, do that. And then you've got something else you could even the next week follow up with a text that says, hey, looking forward to talking to you at 2 o'clock on Thursday, and all of that. But have a couple of questions that you might want to ask them about about the property, or about the circumstance, or about anything that you want to do. Back to breaking some eggs, come up with a few questions that you might want to ask. And Bruce, I'm going to kick this back to you when I'm done with, maybe what might those questions be to do that ice-breaking phone call, because Aline's making a great point. If they're willing to talk to you in 2 weeks and you can get to talk to them sooner, it doesn't hurt to do that.
Yeah,
Although that's
no,
a better
I
opportunity.
agree.
Yeah, better opportunity for you to display your capability, and I wouldn't wait a second. I'd jump right on that. And we've heard this numerous times on these calls. Don't wait. Yep,
Right.
I'll talk to them in 2 weeks. Great. Tomorrow's a great day.
Sometimes when you call, you're triggering them to actually take action because they speak to somebody. Hey, you haven't done this. All of a sudden they do it. The last thing you want them to do is they go with somebody else.
Right, exactly. That's why I'm nervous about waiting 2 weeks to really continue to
Absolutely.
contact them.
And you've
Absolutely.
got nothing to lose. They've already said they're willing to do it. Even if you do that and they say, well, I told you I wasn't going to be ready to talk in 2 weeks. Hey, I understand. I'm not doing that. It's just I'm trying to be better able to be prepared for our conversation. And I want to let you know I care. I'm a hardworking person and I'm always on top of my game here, and I'm trying to do the best job I can for you. So that's the reason I'm asking you this. I'm not trying to pressure you into doing anything. I know that it's a tough time for you and all that. There's no rule book for the tough job that you've got in front of you trying to handle this. It's particularly true for probate. You got some different nuances, and you're going to have maybe a different game plan for divorce, but
Oh, yeah.
you've got the nuances of probate that we talk about a lot on this call. Bruce, what kind of questions might he pose when he's making that warm it up phone call?
I think the warm it up phone call needs to be held really short. I don't want to ask a lot. Personally, I don't want to ask a lot of questions. I completely agree that you have to jump on a warm it up call. So the ISA just built a foundation much higher than the found. You don't have to build the foundation anymore. Okay, so I'm going to call and I'm going to say, like, Dwight, hey, Bruce Hill, how's it going? Good. Dwight, listen, you don't know me. You just spoke with my assistant. Okay, I always want you referring to your ISA. Hopefully, you know their name. You know their
Yes,
name.
yes.
My assistant, they mentioned that you were in the middle of this and that I should call you in a couple of weeks. Before I call you in a couple of weeks, I wanted to quickly call and put a voice with a name and let you know that I'm going to send you some preliminary information that you can look at before I call you in a few weeks. Okay. By the way, they mentioned that maybe I'll use that opportunity to maybe grab an email. I might say, hey, I'm going to send you some information that you can look at before I call you in a couple of weeks. If I don't have an email yet, and hopefully you do, if you don't, that's fine. If you don't have one, just go, would that be okay? And they're going to say yes, the way you ask it. What's the best email? Get an email and then go, by the way, they mentioned that the house was something that you hadn't decided on yet, but it might be sold down the road. Is that right? Okay. You just want to bring up what they've already spoken about. They mentioned that the house was something you haven't decided on, but it might end up being sold down the road. Is that correct? Yep. Listen, I know you don't know what you're going to do yet. So reinforce what they told the ISA. You don't want to put pressure on.
Right.
I know you don't know what you're going to do yet. If at some point, even if it's 7 or 8 months down the road, you did decide to sell, do you think maybe I could get you an offer? Okay. I don't know anyone that's going to say no to that. Okay. Because they're not saying, yeah, you can come give me an offer right now. They're not saying that.
Right.
Okay. They're saying, yeah, if we decide to sell in 7 or 8 months, yeah, you could get us an offer. I like that even for those of you that are agents that don't have cash, because you're not saying, can I make you a cash offer in my name? You're saying, do you think I could get you an offer? Okay. Would you be open to seeing where a preliminary idea might look like? A lot of people say, yeah, you can give me a ballpark. Okay, perfect. Only thing I really need to do is maybe take a quick peek on the outside, maybe do a quick walkthrough. Do you think instead of a phone call in 2 weeks, I might be able to stop by for just a few minutes? And now you're face to face. Now, maybe they say no, but at least you've taken someone that you otherwise weren't going to talk to for 2 weeks if then, and you've turned them into saying, yes, if we sell in 6 months, you can bring us an offer. Okay, that's way better than, hey, I've got this name that I might talk to in 2 weeks.
Right.
Okay.
Fair
So
point.
worst case scenario, they say, no, I don't want you in here yet. That's kind of worst case.
Sure.
Best case, you have an appointment.
And just be careful that, you know, they've already done a 2 week standoff. So be careful that it doesn't look like you're trying to jump the gun on that. You literally are just trying to do a better job, and you're anxious to meet with them in 2 weeks. And like Bruce said, recognize the fact that, you know, hey, it's great. I'm looking forward to meeting with you in 2 weeks. But before that, yada, 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 whatever those things are. And
Right.
whatever you find comfortable making those statements, that's what you need to go do. Does that help you out, Troy?
Yeah. Thank you very
I
much.
just want to add one quick thing, Tim, to what you were saying is, as I like to sometimes preface it by just saying, in an effort to better be prepared for our appointment in 2 weeks, ... And then you can ask a couple of quick questions and see where that goes to, just in an effort to be prepared,
Okay.
to be best
Absolutely.
prepared.
Kudos to you, buddy, for, you know, getting
job.
started doing it the right way and getting your letters out and having AT make the call. You're doing everything right. I'm looking forward to hearing some great successes coming from what you're doing. I think that's great.
Well, I'm
Andy?
very excited about the possibilities of the 2 areas that I'm going down, and I'm charged. So we'll see what happens, but I'm optimistic.
All right, bud. Well, we'll look forward to hearing good things from you.
All right.
Andy,
Well,
Andy, I asked you to unmute. You had your hand up earlier. You going to ask something?
No, I was just waving.
Oh.
It was an inadvertent hand.
No, that's great. That's great. All right, bud. I just didn't want you to think we weren't going to take your question there. We're at the top of the hour here. I'm going to take one quick second. If anybody wants to raise their hand, if you have a last minute question, we'll take it. And if I don't see that real quick, which I don't, been a great call as always. I love it when we get to answer some good questions and move forward. And I love it most when we aren't scripted and don't have a particular plan to run on. It kind of went the way I'd hoped it went today. So thank you for being here and participating. I would ask one thing of you, and that is this: if you can, please join us earlier on the call. But this is probably we had more people kind of trickle in as the call went this time, and, you know, try and block this time out, be a little bit more systematic about your time. We need your participation on this. Everybody needs to hear from you, and a lot of good things get said sometimes that we all miss. So we look forward to having you on. Jimmy, give your great speech, buddy.
All right. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. Another great call. I want to particularly thank those that actively participated: Bruce, Aline, Corey, Tim, Steve, Dwight. I want to thank Andy for waving at us. And I want to challenge each of you: take one idea that inspired you on this call, go out and put it into practice, and please come back next Thursday and share the results with the group. Have a great week, guys. Same time next Thursday. Take care.
thanks much.